Hey everyone, and welcome into the College Huddle National College Football Show. This is where we talk about all things college football, not just certain conferences, but everything that's going on. A big topic that's been talked about recently is the NCAA and punishing teams. So we decided to put together the bad boys crew of the College Huddle in one video for all of their schools and all that they've done. And we're just going to talk about the NCAA and punishments. Are these even relevant? Are these things that have even made an actual impact? Because I know I've heard some people out there say, like, yeah, get rid of scholarships. Guess what? We have NIL, and guys can pay for their they can pay for their scholarships through NIL and stuff like that nowadays. So we're gonna go each person here, kind of let them describe what their recent punishments or getting out of punishments has been in Michael's case, and how that's been impactful, and then we'll talk about all that together. So Michael, why don't you start us off? Obviously, Jeremy Pruitt, and then obviously the punishments you guys got out of. How have those been impactful on the program here recently?
So, as far as the Pruitt era goes, Tennessee they pretty much did everything by the book with that one, and everyone thought, well, Tennessee's doing this, they should get out of a lot of stuff, and they probably got out of a little bit more than they would have originally because a lot of this stuff came out pre NIL. But in the end, Tennessee did end up with a $8 million fine, 5 years probation, but it wasn't like a bowl ban or anything. A total of 28 scholarships were revoked, and Pruitt did receive a 6 year show cause. So that's been impactful as far as getting Heupel's team together, trying to rebuild the program. But he's still done a fantastic job of it. As far as the recent NIL allegations based on Nico Iamaleava, it's one of those things that Tennessee happened to be the program that challenged it because the chancellors, the president of the university, they were already preparing from the time that Nico first signed his NIL deal, making sure everything was legal. So as soon as NCAA allegations came out, they challenged it. They saw that the NCAA was their rules against it were not in accordance with the law, and so you can either thank or you can curse Tennessee for opening up the world to NIL the way that it is now. But it's been interesting seeing how all of this has come about so far.
Hey, at the end of the day, you guys had to do what you had to do to fight for yourselves. That's the way I look at it in my mind. Jesse, you guys have had some stuff with NIL, a staff member in particular that endured some things. Kind of explain that for us, and then the impact it's had on the program overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the old dog that's sleeping on the porch, and we just happen to be like the one person that it woke up and bit in the last 10 years. So yeah, I mean, we're dealing with some penalties. It was pretty modest. You got 2 years probation. They've already pretty much served one of that. You had some fines, 5,000 plus 1% of the football budget. Really, where you get caught up is the 5% reduction of scholarships, also the reduction in recruiting communications and in-person visits. I think that's probably going to be one of your most impactful. Like, for instance, the portal's been open for a week. Florida State is just now able to go into the portal. Now, fortunately, it's actually been a relatively slow portal season for what people made it out to be. So it really hasn't affected us there, but you just kind of get a late start. We've had a little bit light in offensive line recruiting where we were kind of like, Atkins was our coordinator. He was one of our ace recruiters. Like, what's going on? And then you come to find out that he's been limited as well. He does have a 3-game suspension for the first 3 games of this upcoming season. Now, Mike Norvell is the play caller, so maybe not a huge deal there, but still, I mean, you hate to lose your offensive line coach and offensive coordinator for 3 games. One thing that sounds bad, but not really the way with Florida State set up is the 1-year disassociation from the NIL collective. That sounds like it could be huge. But we have a different NIL collective for football that has emerged since then. So we kind of missed one there. And then you have the show cause to hire Atkins away from Florida State, which in a weird kind of way, man, like we were kind of worried about him getting poached coming up anyway. So maybe that kind of helps him stay put. But I mean, I feel like you should almost just buck the NCAA and tell them that we're not going to, deal with this stuff, with some of the things that you see don't get punished in the absolute insane era that we're in. I mean, you even have NIL that varies from state to state based on what the laws are passed. So like it's kind of a wild west, and it just sucks that we happen to be kind of like the one school that got punished for some stuff when all he did was really he drove a recruit and his family to an NIL meeting. So he's an Uber driver, and you're talking about all these penalties for it. But I mean, it is the game that it's their responsibility to know that, and hopefully they learn from it. But I mean, it is what it is. And the last thing I'll say is I do have to say with the NCAA, they don't get it right often, but I got to give them credit for giving Reggie his Heisman back. I thought that was a good move. So it might be the only good thing they've done in 20 years, but it was the right move.
The only good thing they've done is they've taken back something they did before that they weren't supposed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mark, Arizona State obviously has been in the news a little bit recently. Herm Edwards, that's all. I think that's the only name I need to say, and everybody knows what's going on there. So, what's been some of the punishments there, and what's the impact been, at least in this short time, for Arizona State?
Well, I'll start with the impact, because when you look at the punishments, it's really not, at least in going forward, I don't think it's going to affect the program too much. But the real punishment in this was just how long the NCAA investigation took. Basically 3 years. And that just torched the program, because if you look into some of the recruiting classes, I think the 2021 recruiting class and a few of those after, like there was one where ASU was in like the hundreds. It was just such an easy thing for other schools to recruit against. And, it just, everything fell apart from there. As for the actual penalties, so I have this on the NCAA page. Okay. The agreed upon penalties in this case are 4 years of probation for the school, a fine, self-imposed bowl ban that we did for the 2023 season. I think they had a vacation of records for contests in which ineligible student athletes competed, scholarship reductions, and recruiting restrictions in alignment with the level 1 mitigated classification for the school. And they have to disassociate from a booster for a period of 5 years. That booster turned out to be Jaden Daniels' mom, who was buying. Yeah. Who was buying. And it's funny. It's like, it's not even, she was buying trips and I think like lodging stays for recruits in the time when they were not, they specifically said that they weren't supposed to be going on campus. And just, it's like, it's not even anything that's like actually bad, but it's just from a curiosity standpoint, it's like, why were you buying? It's more of a thing like that. So, and it's been reported by our 24/7 reporter, Chris Cartman, that ASU will only have to reduce its scholarships by 1 in 2024, just from 85 to 84. And they reduced it by 7 the previous season. And then there's 4 weeks between now and August 1st that they can't host recruits and can't contact recruits. And ASU can choose which weeks those are. So like, you're down 1 scholarship and, oh no, you can't bring recruits to Tempe when it's 110 degrees in July. Like, so it's weird, because like when people saw like ASU was on probation, ASU has scholarship limits, like people kind of freaked out at first, but once some of the details have come out, it's much more manageable. It's kind of the length of the investigation is the ultimate punishment. So, there'll still be stuff coming out. There's all sorts of show causes that have been levied on the former staff. Apparently, all these programs that are trying to hire Herm Edwards to be their college football coach in 2024 won't get the opportunity to do so now. But he can. So, but that's kind of the gist of it. It's now that it's kind of over, it's not so bad, and hopefully Dillingham and co will be able to move forward.
That's really interesting, because The next part of this was do NCAA punishments actually do anything? Because like we kind of talked about at the beginning, the scholarships you can kind of get around with just bringing somebody in as a walk-on and then having them pay their NIL, to pay their scholarship. Obviously, I'm sure they don't like to do that, but at the end of the day, it's better than being a walk-on and paying your way in altogether. And it's really interesting what you said, Mark, about the timing of like the punishment coming was almost worse than the punishment itself. I assume that means that maybe recruits were kind of weary of coming in because they didn't know what the punishment would be. Is that what you would say would be the issue?
Yeah, that and just just how long the investigation took. I mean, it's like 3 years. And maybe if they didn't do a bowl ban last year, 2023 season, then that would have been added to it, but they did do it. So, it's been a rocky road to get to this point, but it does seem, barring something unforeseen happening, which is always the expected, I guess. It does seem that like it's for mostly resolved. So.
Very interesting. Jesse, we'll go back to you. I mean, from your experience and also just like what you've seen in college football overall, me speaking from experience back in 2010 with the punishments with Jim Treshel and everything like that, those were really impactful because we actually lost our coach and we lost players that could not play that were coming because the investigation did happen so quickly. But nowadays, like Mark is talking about, investigations are taking 3 years. So, I mean, in your opinion, Jesse, are these NCAA punishments even relevant? Are they actually doing anything, or are they taking so long and it's more just like the waiting process that does more than the actual punishment?
Yeah, I think you're kind of right on all fronts. I mean, the dragging it out takes a long time because, in Arizona State's case, you had a coaching change in the middle of it. And so, imagine Kenny coming in and he's now trying to establish his culture and his program and get that momentum. And you also have to tell all your people, like, oh, well, we're not going to a bowl this year because we're under a bowl ban, or, you're down scholarships. I think that's where it really hurts, like a new staff build momentum. But I think recruiting is where you feel the hardest hit, because obviously recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. If you're reduced, on the contact time, like you said, you can kind of get around the scholarships there to a degree with NIL stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it's more the recruiting and then like killing momentum for new staffs. Like in our case, we had the same staff. We brought back all 10 coaching staff members. It's not really going to affect us a whole lot on the field. But I mean, and I also think like with what Mark was saying, you get so many people that are like, oh, you're on probation. Like it's some rare commodity that happens. I'm like, man, people are on probation all the time. Like, unless you get the death penalty or something like SMU, I just wonder at what point the like power two, if we end up in that situation, are just going to be like, look, man, y'all can have the basketball tournament, baseball, whatever you want. We're going to do our own thing because we're not going to abide by that anymore. Like, at what point did they just, we've had enough, we're going to do our own thing, make our own rules. You guys are kind of irrelevant anyway. But I mean, yeah, we've had wins vacated for like an online music class. So, it might alter the record books or something like that. But I mean, outside of recruiting, usually it's not a huge deal. I mean, NCAA doesn't have a whole lot of teeth, but you still kind of have to follow it, if they hand it out.
Yeah.
Very true. Michael, we'll end it with you, kind of get your opinion on all of it. You started us off. Now take us home here. Is the NCAA, their punishments, is it relevant in your eyes and your experiences?
No, at this point, they realize that they have basically no power. They're trying to they're trying to act like that they do have some sort of power. They're trying to show that that they can try to affect what happens with everything else. And I mean, really, as you can tell from the Tennessee lawsuit with Virginia, they don't have any. So no, I don't think that. I don't think that the NCAA it really affects things overall. So
makes sense. All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for coming in here. Appreciate it. Mark, you want to tell people where they can find your podcast at?
Yeah, just at Stomp the Bus on YouTube.com, at Stomp the Bus Pod on Twitter or X. It's I think there will be better ASU news coming, hopefully. I think most of the bad stuff is in the past at this point. So, yeah, follow us there.
Very good. Jesse, where can we find you?
Yeah, check us out at plantthespear.com, our website, kind of our hub for everything. You can find links to everything, YouTube videos and all that stuff there. Of course, we're on YouTube, social media as well. We are Plant the Spear 1 on X. We're a little late to the jump there, getting the OG name, but, glad I could come on and be a part of the Troublemakers crew, and, always appreciate that. So, yeah, looking forward to getting into the portal and to the NFL draft tomorrow night.
I love it. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, you can find us, the Vol Fanatic Show, on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Facebook, at Vol Fanatics 1998 on Twitter, X, whatever you do like to call it. Looking in the future to have a website. Still hadn't gotten into that yet, and you can also find me personally on the SEC Huddle. It comes out every Thursday night. Skylar and I do the Vol Fanatic Show on Sunday afternoons. So.
Love it. Yeah, check out Michael there. He does a lot of good work, entertaining episodes, bringing on tons of guys there. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it. Have a good one.